Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
In case you didn't know, this is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, and I'm your forever host, Pauline. Now, when a couple of episodes back, we talked about, of course, while it was happening, the NBA draft. Now, when I had mentioned to you before, and if you didn't hear this in a previous episode, you're going to hear it now, and if you did hear it before, you know, it's kind of like English class. You learn the same thing one year as you do the next year. They just add a little bit more to it and tell you that it's something new, but it's really the exact same thing. But anyways, so Ingram was, selected number 2. He's with the Lakers, and so he's over there with your boy Luke Walton. He's over there also with Metta World Peace, and so they're kind of getting ready for this new generation of LA Lakers. There's no more Kobe. Matt Barnes is gone. They kind of have been like in a slump lately, but whatever, that's the Lakers and they're trying to make improvements. So now when you pick somebody number 2, typically when you're drafted, like the first, I'll even say the first 10, the top 10, that the team, unless they're okay, I'll just take it back. So when you're drafted very, very early in the first round, I'll say like the 5 through 10, you're drafted for a purpose. You know what I mean? Like, most likely you're not just, trade off bait. You're drafted with a purpose, and they want to use you, and they're investing in you, and they want you to make an impact and make a difference on the team most of the time. Okay, so especially number 1, 2, and 3. We'll take it back. 1, 2, and 3. So we know that we have been talking about Brandon, and I mentioned how people have been wanting, he's been trying to bulk up and things like that, and we weren't quite sure because he's young, he's only 19, so and how he would mesh in the NBA. So now the Lakers have come out because again, training camp has begun, and so now there's no more speculation. They're actually starting to be able to practice. We're trying to see how some of these key players and these puzzle pieces work with each of these teams as they have acquired new players, whether it's through the draft or through trades in the off season with free agency and, injuries, whatever. There's a lot of different factors and like a lot of puzzle pieces that have been moved around, and now they're trying to make a new picture, right? All of the teams, it seems like. And so Brandon Ingram is on the Lakers. He was drafted number 2, and they are saying that they're going to pull him off the bench. So they're not saying that they're not going to use him and not play him this upcoming season, but he is not, as of right now, he's not going to be a starter. And I actually feel okay with that. I feel okay with that decision because and Brandon even said himself that he's actually, looking forward to that because it gives him something to work towards. Being the best come up off the bench player that you can be, whether that's 6th man, 7th man, whatever, because that too is a pretty big deal. Like, you could come off the bench, that's fine, but if you're coming off the bench and you're not making an impact, then you're going to see more of the bench and you're going to get lower, you're going to start seeing your seat getting slid down farther and farther towards the end of the bench. So, if you're going to be a bench player, and you're going to be number 6 or number 7, whatever, be the best number 6 and number 7 and even number 8 that you could be, you got, cause, and I appreciate the fact that, he did mention that he's younger and that, it's going to take some time for him to, he wants to adjust to the NBA style of play and the style of impact and the style of, like the speed and the athleticism that these guys produce nightly on the court. And so I think he's very wise right now in being okay with it. And I mean, I guess you can't really say too much, So he just wants to be the best player off the bench that he can be and work towards actually becoming a starter, And I think that's really good. I think it's going to be a better fit for the Lakers. And there are some guys that can come out of college, one and done guys that can come out of college and make a huge impact right away on their respective teams. But I think in this case, it's going to be really good. He did mention that he wants to work on getting stronger and build more strength. And he even said, it's not necessarily about the weight side, which, I guess we couldn't get done beating that old horse that he needs to gain weight. I guess that's just a fact. But he wants to get stronger. And I think that that's very smart, again, because this 19-year-old is going to be thrust into games with, guys that are 10, 15, maybe even 20 years older than him, So again, I think that's going to be a really good transition for him. I'm excited to see how he grows with not only with the Lakers, but grows just as a player and develops as a player. And it seems like he's the kind of guy that wants to put in the work, that he has no problem putting in the work and earning his spot. And he knows that, being picked number 2 overall, being picked in the NBA draft, regardless of what spot, but, especially number 2 is a huge accomplishment. And, fellows dream of hearing their name called. But I just appreciate the fact, and I like his drive, and I like how he understands that it's not going to be handed to him and that he has to work towards it, and that he recognizes his age and some parts that need to be worked on. And I really like the fact that he's willing to work at it and to develop and to strengthen himself. He's not the kind of guy that's like, oh, I'm so good, put me out there now, because that can be some guys are that good, but it's like, you haven't even played an NBA game yet. You know what I mean? So, I'm not saying that Division I college basketball is a small pond, but it's kind of like a lake. And, you may be the big fish in the lake, but now you're about to go to the ocean where they got sharks, and those blue whales and giant squids. I don't know how that metaphor got away from me, but what I'm saying is that I'm really glad that he's willing to put in that work, and I'm glad that the Lakers are investing in him and wanting to build him up to, and giving him the time that he needs to develop so that he can be a really high impact player. I think he's going to do well with the Lakers and what they're trying to build over there in that organization. So we are going to cut it to a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about some changes that are going to be happening in game to kind of speed up the game. I know it's a fast game already, but we want to speed it up, and we want these games to keep rolling without so many pauses, as well as an international player. His last name is Singh, who's going to come over and be trying out for the D-League. So actually, I believe next month is D-League tryout. So keep it locked here. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. We will be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and so the NBA is going to be making a few adjustments to better the viewer's pleasure, and I'm actually pretty excited for these. So these few little changes. So one change is it kind of affects the way that we view the game a little bit. I do think it's a pretty big deal, and I think it's going to be cool. So the league just recently announced that it's starting a deal with Sportradar, who will distribute statistics for the NBA, the WNBA, as well as the D League to over 80 countries. So, which is cool because, people like to keep track of stats, and then whether you play fantasy or if you just are one of those people that really likes numbers and likes to, the numbers don't lie. So you like to follow that part, whether it's your favorite player or perhaps you're trying to prove to somebody that you kick it with that their favorite player is not as good as your favorite player. I think that that's kind of cool. And I think that keeping stats is a really cool job. And so Sportradar is going to be able to get that to more people, and they're building the NBA brand, or just basketball in general, because that's also going to keep stats for the WNBA and the D League. So just American basketball in general. In addition to Sportradar, they also started a new deal with Second Spectrum. So, and that is going to keep, player tracking information. So they're switching over from SportView to Second Spectrum. This is the NBA that I'm talking about right now. They're actually in the works right now and installing these really cool new tracking cameras. So in every league, not in every league, in every arena in the league. So all the arenas are going to have these really cool and new tracking cameras. And so we will now be able to have more highly detailed data on player movement. So I quote, this is from an article from ESPN, and this is saying, so it's going to include how much ground that they cover, where they touch the ball the most, and also their ability to guard the pick and roll. So it's going to be actually really cool. I'm very excited to see how they're going to incorporate all of this new data and new information, especially on the players, like in game, when making different predictions, when they're discussing details of the game, whether it's at halftime or on breaks, when they have those analysts discussing and analyzing what is happening. And I just think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be another way to see really in plain view what your favorite player does or does not do, and why perhaps your team is losing because maybe they're not guarding the pick and roll that well, or maybe they're not covering as much ground. Maybe your big guy really needs to speed it up and get back on defense because, those other guys are, because we'll be able to see that he's not covering too much ground, that he's kind of slacking. So I think that's going to be a lot of cool. It's going to add another element to how we watch the game and what we see, and new information that we're going to actually be able to obtain when watching these games. Now, another tech thing that is going to be added into how we watch the game, and now the NBA is hoping that this will actually speed up the games. Now, we kind of got a glimpse of this with this past season, but so they have, the NBA has the replay center. Now, it's basically, in if you watch like the finals or watch some of last season, you may recall this new thing that they are doing, but it's in New Jersey, and so like that's where the center is, and basically it's staffed. It basically will assist referees in making calls. So so during the game, there's there's replays that have to be watched in order to make a certain call. But then, as we all know, once the whistle's blown, or once, they stop the play on the court, the referees walk over to the video, they walk over to the television, they put on the headset, they discuss things, they watch the replays over and over again, however many times it may take, they watch the different angles, whatever. And so that takes up time. Sometimes they cut it to a commercial break. Sometimes we're just sitting there waiting. Usually the teams will huddle up and kind of get into last words and things like that from each other or from the coach, whatever it may be. But that does take up time. It eats up time. And so they want to speed up this process. The logic behind this is by speeding up the replay process, you're going to speed up the game. There's going to be less interruptions. It's going to be more seamless. Now, last season, 72% of the reviews were determined by the replay center. But now there's going to be upwards of 87% of those replays and reviews are going to be, those decisions are going to be made by referees and staff in the replay center. And so it's pretty cool because, so there's 15 plays or scenarios that could cause a review. Now, there are going to be, 13 of those 15 plays are going to be decided by the replay center. So it's just going to speed it up, because now instead of having to walk over to the scorer's table and to watch that video over and over again, they can actually just put on the headset. The referees could put on the headset, because the replay center, the folks in the replay center will have watched the replay and everything like that in real time. And so by the time they put the headset on, they're just going to be given the call. And the people at the replay center will let the referees, the down refs, I guess in this particular instance, the live refs that are on the court, they're just going to give them the play. They're going to make that call. We're going to keep it moving. So it's going to add, again, it's going to be a lot quicker. And the only 2 scenarios that are still going to be made by on-court officials are flagrant fouls and altercations, which clearly, that makes more sense, because depending on the context and depending on the situation and what is going on and the tempo of the game, the emotion of the game, whatever may have you, what's leading up to the game or up to that foul or that altercation, that flagrant foul, excuse me. So I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be really cool. And I actually like when you watch TV, when you watch the games on TV, they kind of take you to that replay center, and then sometimes they explain why that call was made and things like that and what they would do. So I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be a great addition. I love the fact that they're just trying to speed it up, because honestly, I hate when it's like a really fast game and like you're really into the game, and then they blow the whistle, and they have to go review. They want to go watch it again, and then they cut it to a break, and they cut it to the commercial, and the commercial's like for Purina or something, or it's for, I don't know, Swiffer. And it's like, I was yelling at my TV not too long ago, and like, I'm hot because I'm really into it. And I'm just like, what's going on? Like, and I'm getting anxious, whether, cause sometimes it happens when the game is really close, or if it's like, right before a halftime, or the difference between this call could mean the difference on whether or not your player is shooting free throws or not, whether the basket is good or not. And you're freaking out, because you're like, this could potentially throw the game. Well, not throw the game, but could determine the game and things like that. So then you get really anxious, and then now you're watching Purina or you're watching Glade, and it just really, I don't like it. So I'm really excited, because we're going to have less of those commercial breaks, and we are, well, as far as for that, in that case, and we're going to get some answers right away. That instant gratification that I love, we're just going to get it right on top of things. And so I think it's going to be a really good addition. I'm excited for it. I know that there's probably going to be some people that are going to, but I don't really think that you can really dispute it, because, at the replay center, they have all those different angles as well. And they have all the different TVs and the different angles, the different camera angles, And so they're going to be able to quickly, and if it's staffed by more people, then more people can watch the same angle quicker. More people can watch different angles simultaneously. So I think it's going to be better overall. Again, unless it's a flagrant foul or, like a fight, it's going to be basically decided in the replay center. So we're going to see how that goes. And it's not like this is something new. It's just upping how much leeway in the decisions that they're able to make. So we're going to cut to a quick break. And when we come back, I want to wrap it up with discussing a player from India who is going to be trying out for the D-League, as well as, like I said, the luxury of being on a player for the Jayhawks. So keep it right here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. We will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone. So we are getting ready to wrap wrap up this episode of the Basketball Podcast. But before I did, I wanted to discuss and bring to your guys' attention, if you did not know, but so the D-League tryouts are coming up, and now some people downplay the D-League, which I understand, but that in itself is a great accomplishment. So if you play in the D-League, more power to you. I have a couple friends that, some guys that I know that played in the D-League, then got signed to the 10-day contract, and then got signed to permanent contracts. There's nothing wrong with the D-League. It's a great... If you're able to play in the D-League, good for you. Keep working at it. You're one step closer, honestly, to making the second, that bigger dream of playing in the NBA a reality. And so now India had their first national basketball talent search. I don't quite know too much about that and what that process was like. However, I think it's really cool because in one of my previous episodes, we talked about how the NBA is trying to globalize and how they're looking for talent with those global academies, Basketball Without Borders. They're trying to globalize and bring the NBA and bring basketball to people and different prospects and bring in new people. And again, with this past draft, we had a lot of guys that were internationally born. And so they're really expanding. Now, India has just, like I said, so this young player, his name is Palpreet Singh, and he has been working and training at the New York Athletic Club under coach Ross Byrne. So he's been, since winning that, he's been working on his skill. He has been perfecting his craft. And we always, kind of get into the whole thing that you got to kind of adjust from the type of playing style when you come over here from international play or vice versa. And so he has, like I said, he will be participating in the national tryouts. So he was a part of the national tryouts, and they took place in August in New York for the D-League. Okay, so now he has been able to showcase himself and things like that. So perhaps he will be able to get drafted and sign a D-League contract. I'm excited for him because I think it's pretty cool. And I just thought that the story was kind of cool because, like I said, it was for an NBA talent search that took place in India. So he had to win. And I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of America's Next Top Model, except for it's for basketball and it's for ball players and it's for guys. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I need to look into that. So I'll get back to you guys about that and exactly what that was like over there for him and what he had to do. I'm sure they had a lot of skills assessments. I'm sure they had a lot of health assessments as well as scrimmage games and other athletic training, because you have to go through, I'm sure he must have had to go through a physical. He must have had to go through agility training and competitions and scoring and ratings, probably much like a combine. I'm assuming that they would have had to do something like that. And so he was a part of those tryouts, and so that were held in August. So he is looking forward to, the draft, the D-League draft. So hopefully he'll sign a contract. I don't know. It'll be really cool. It'll be kind of like a really good success story for that Indian talent search that they started over there in India. It'd be really good for him. So that is on Singh. We'll see if anything comes up of this. Who knows? Maybe this will be just a pit stop before he gets to the NBA. We will see how that goes for him and see if, but again, when you're competing against the standard of the NBA, which is, American basketball, sometimes people fizzle out. Sometimes they do better. Sometimes they don't do as well. Sometimes it takes them more time than they would have expected or would have liked to adjust. But it happens. So we'll see what happens with him as he makes that transition into the D-League and whether or not if he actually does make that transition. So we'll keep a little eye out for him. But so to wrap up this episode, I wanted to discuss Kansas, the Jayhawks dorm. So the Jayhawks have a dorm area. Now, if you didn't go to college, that's totally fine. But college life, especially for a lot of schools, freshman year, when you live on campus, you live in the dorms. Now, they have co-ed dorms. They have dorms that are gender specific. They have dorms that are hobby specific. You can go in a dorm. My brother is in a dorm that is related to like his major. So his roommates are on the same school as he is, as well as like hallmates and things like that. You can go and, UC Irvine, we had like the arts hall and things like that. So you can kind of go into a dorm based upon your preference, based upon your hobbies, whatever. I went to I didn't go to an all-girls school, but I lived in an all-girls dorm my freshman year, which actually, it wasn't a sorority house. So it wasn't like crazy, but I loved it because it was more mellow. But anyways, so the Jayhawks are the second most winningest program in college basketball, right behind the University of Kentucky. So now they have a basketball hall that is called the McCarthy Hall, and they've invested, give or take $12 million into this hall. Now, I just wanted to talk about this hall because I just think it was the coolest thing. So, of course, they have the luxury of the ping pong tables, the pool tables, whatever. So, I'm sure they have a kitchen in there and things like that. But the thing that struck me about this dorm, so they get to relax. They have an outdoor patio, so that they just want to sit back and relax and things like that. They can do that. One thing that I thought was really smart, and this actually had to be adjusted for my friend, so I was like, okay, this is really good and this is really smart and good for them. Like the shower heads are higher, because there's nothing worse than when you're like at a hotel or you're at a friend's house and like the shower head like only hits like the mid or like top of your back. Now, I'm not that tall, but I'm 5'9", so there are some times when like I'm like, great, like the shower nozzle is not high enough, so they don't have to worry about that in the basketball dorm. It's higher, it's adjusted for them, which I think is really convenient, and it makes a big difference in their comfort level. But the cool thing about this dorm that I was like, oh my gosh, is that they have a barbershop. Now, I agree, when you're on a squad that plays on TV more often than not, I agree. I think that you should always have your fade lined up. I think that there's no excuse as to why. Now there's definitely no excuse for them as to why their hair is ever out of place, because you can just stop by the barbershop and get lined up. You probably got to make an appointment though, because if everybody on the squad is trying to get lined up right before, media day, or right before pictures, or right before autograph signings, or whatever it is that they do, throughout this season, appearances and things, you probably gotta plan that. You can't probably just step in. You're gonna have to wait for a little bit. But I just thought that was kind of cool and just a luxury that they have for being on the team. Now, when you're on, I've always said this, when you're on an athletics team, especially football and or basketball, whether your squad is a D1, D2, or D3, or whatever, it's a well-known thing that you get some perks, whether it's the gear, whether it's the travel, but there's perks that come with being on a team, especially when you're on a basketball team or a football team, because those sports are pretty big nationwide, but especially when you're on like a winning basketball team that is known to be winners. There's a lot that comes with it, a lot of luxury that comes with it. And I just think it's hilarious that they have a barbershop. I just thought that was great. Why not? I always, that one like haircut that guys are kind of getting right now, where it's kind of like, they went through that phase of like the mushroom phase, where like it was like really low on the sides and the top was all kind of like up and kind of like a pineapple on top. That was kind of like I call that the Duke starting five, because I just felt like everybody on Duke had that haircut. But then now they're all kind of getting like those braids, like where like now instead of letting it go up like a pineapple, they're kind of like braiding two braids into like a little man bun. So I don't know if that's going to be like the Jayhawks special or whatever, but so they can get their haircut. But that's just going to wrap up this episode. I just wanted to talk about that because I just think it's really cool that that they make adjustments. I'm sure like probably the beds are a little bit bigger because the guys are taller. They made that adjustment for a couple of guys that were 7 foot plus. for Irvine's basketball team. So I don't see why they wouldn't do that for the Jayhawks and different adjustments that they would have for them. So like I said, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I've been your host, Pauline. You can listen to this episode, future and past episodes on our network website, gsmcpodcast.com, as well as on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.